It was like in a garbage can. I was like, this is mine now.
That is my catnip. If there is a weird thing in your garbage, there is a 90% chance that I'm taking it from you.
Yeah, same.
Should we just do an intro?
Yeah, we should start the podcast. Sorry.
Hey everyone, this is Heaving Bosoms Ask a Badass, the episode where we highlight listeners to chat all about romance novels, their interests, and general badassery. I hope you listen on Monday, February 4th for the exciting conclusion of From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. We swoon a ton over Ivan Lukov taking all the care of Jasmine. Aaron eats a tiny crow. I impart a gross life hack, and so much more. And now we've got the one and only Holly E. She's co-host of the Wildly Tarot podcast, general beacon of witchiness, lover of dogs and houseplants, owner of one of the sexiest Kathleen Turner-esque voices I've ever heard, and all-around goddamned inspiration. Here we go!
Hey everybody, it's Natalie. I'm here on the Ask a Badass podcast, and today I'm with Holly.
Yeah!
Holly, you should not be a stranger to the HBs.
I hope not.
I mean, audio-wise, well, I guess only if they're a patron, right?
Oh, that's true. That's true.
So, Holly is one of the hosts of Wildly Tarot podcast.
Indeed.
She has been an HB for a very long time.
Yeah, at least a year and a half.
Did you have a podcast before you were an HB?
Yep, it was called something different. And actually, the first time that we got a shout out, we were a lady love of Aaron's with our old name, which was Holistic Tarot Agency. It was 3 of us instead of 2 of us.
I think I listened to it then.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
We had some shifting because of like personal responsibilities. And now it's just the 2 of us and we changed the name. And we've been Wildly Tarot for a little over a year. But we had we started the original podcast in May of 2018, and then we switched over to Wildly Tarot in December of 2018.
So you guys kind of started right around the same time as Heaving Bosoms.
Maybe
that's
because
kind of, I think, right around
the only reason I got introduced to Heaving Bosoms was because Bree, who you've also interviewed, DM'd me on Instagram and was like, "Oh, hey, I listened to this romance podcast and I suggested your podcast in the Facebook group." So I think we must have kind of, because she's like an original OG HB.
Yeah.
So I feel like it probably was sort of maybe around the same time. We might have been a little bit later.
I think I got introduced to you through the cult. Not like introduced, like just saw your face there. Not like, hi. Hey, Holly, I'm Natalie.
Is Holly.
Like, that's not really what's going on there.
Wouldn't it be funny if it was? Everyone's just like doing.
Every new HB has to have an official introduction.
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me. Hi, nice to meet you.
See, both of us have been reading too many England Times books because we're like, well, we can't start talking until one of our social superiors introduces us.
You must find someone that's been in the group for longer than 6 months, and they're considered an elder. And oh man.
But yeah, so she told me that she's like, oh yeah, I'm in this romance group, and I suggested your podcast, and I was like, you're in a what now? Please tell me everything. I will start listening immediately.
I'm in a cult, and yes, for anybody that I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't know what the cult is. We're referring to the Geriatric Friendship Cult. That is the closed Facebook group for Heaving Bosoms.
That is worth being part of.
Yeah. I think I kind of stand it pretty hard on this podcast, and I don't want you to feel like you have to join. I just feel like it's a great life choice.
It's really
join,
fun.
You know? Yeah.
But if you're a bummer, don't bother. Yeah. We don't have time for bummers.
I mean, it's very true. Should we talk about romance?
Yeah.
That's, I think, why we're here.
I think so too. Okay. It's my favorite.
Great. When did you start reading romance?
It's really hard to say because every single time I come up with a date, I'm like, was that? Because the hard thing is that I've always been like a really voracious reader. And so I think that my first romance novel was on a family vacation, like in a timeshare that had a bookshelf that included romance.
Yes.
Which I think is like a pretty normal way. And my mom doesn't read romance, but I filled her home with romance novels. That is for sure. My first one, I've never been able to find it again. And I don't think that I even have enough of a memory of it to like write about it on any of the forums where people try to come up with that stuff. All I remember is that there was finger banging on a horse and it was a Western Times.
Doesn't it seem a little problematic to you?
I mean, it seems, first of all, probably really dirty.
Yeah.
And like pretty stinky, I would guess. You don't want your naked body rubbing against a horse. I mean, I'm sure some people do, but
I almost made a bareback joke.
It was right there. That was my fault.
I was just waiting, but I couldn't really think of the right context. So I'll just let it know it was there, brewing under the surface. But yeah, like, and also like that's, you gotta really trust your horse.
And she was like, and I wish I could remember what it was because she was like not a horsewoman. Like it was her first time on a horse and she was having this experience. But it led to me being like, oh my God, there's sex in books. And then I think that next year, or even maybe like later in that same school year, I made friends with this girl who she traveled a lot. I went to a school that was like half boarding school, half day school. I was a day student, but she grew up in Saudi Arabia to like in an American compound, but she flew all over the world a lot on her own because her family lived in Saudi Arabia and but her extended family lived in Oregon. So she was always flying back and forth. And airports are like the best place for a teenage girl to pick up a romance novel.
Correct.
Because nobody's watching what you're doing at all.
No. And they don't really care.
Yeah, they don't care. It's not anyone's job to be like making sure you're only consuming like age appropriate material. Yeah. So she had all of these like medieval times books. And I was like, I like this way more than Western times.
Yeah.
And so she was one of my best friends in high school. And then we also went to the same college, which was a really small college. And she, so we like stayed living really close to each other that whole time. And we used to go to grocery stores and like buy, like either each buy a book or buy a set of novellas and literally tear the books into pieces so we could like share them amongst ourselves.
That's awesome.
It was really fun. And so we had like a little 2-woman book club. And then I kept all of those paperbacks. And then when I moved back home after college, and then subsequently a year later moved to Florida to be with my now husband, my mom like let my sister's best friend go through my giant Tupperware containers of romance novels and take whatever she wanted and then donated everything else. Like a jerk.
Fucking rude.
I've forgiven her barely, but I have because that was my only record keeping mechanism. Yeah. I have no idea what I read for basically like all of high school and college because it was all just paperbacks in a giant Rubbermaid container in my closet.
Yeah. I used to never like take these books into my possession. You know what I mean? Where I would be like, I would read them, but then I would have to bring them back. So that you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
I wasn't tainted at the time. You know what I'm saying? I enjoyed
so that no one knew.
Right. Yeah. So, but I've never had like in-person friends that have read romance.
Yeah.
You know what
really
I mean?
Nice. Totally.
I can only imagine because I have now internet friends that read romance, but like, it's always been, and I live in a very rural area right now, but so I think that's a little bit of it because people don't talk about sex and it's not a very, okay thing to be open about or whatever. So it's like, it's weird to have like, that's such a crazy, awesome thing to have this great personal relationship with somebody based a lot on romance.
Well, and we used to, whenever we would do like, I think that novellas usually come in like 3 or 4 novellas per book when they're like in paperback form. We would talk other people into reading them with us. And actually bringing this back even further with this specific friend, we both played water polo in high school.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And she used to bring novels on long bus rides because we also like kind of lived in a little bit of a rural area. So for water polo matches, we'd have to like drive forever.
Yeah.
And so she'd like read them aloud and everyone would laugh and giggle. And I was the entire time being like, they can laugh all they want because I know how great these actually are. Like you can't the sex part is fantastic, obviously, but don't you want to see the happily ever after? after? Like, people aren't taking this seriously enough.
Yeah. I don't remember who it was, but they talked about a book that they were like recommending that I read. And they were like, and I was like, okay, well, what happens at the end? And they're like, well, I can't tell you because that would ruin it. And I was like, okay, but like, is it going to end well?
Yeah.
Because I'm not
going to waste my time on any of this not happily ever after baloney. I still feel that way. Sometimes I'll like start, like I read the Night Circus because everyone was like, oh, you're a tarot reader. Yeah. You're going to love this. Like, you have a tarot podcast. You should talk about this book on the podcast. So I read the Night Circus and it's beautiful. Do not get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But the whole time I was like, there's no guarantee that this is going to have a happy ending. Yeah. And I don't know if I can really commit to 400 more pages if there's like not a sure thing.
Yes, I understand. I'm reading Mariana Zapata books, and they're like 500 plus pages, and I know it will end well. So therefore, that's why I read them. But
so you feel like you can commit to it. Like, I don't mind a slow burn. I just want them to be in love at the end.
Yeah. If I thought a book was a romance, and I read 500 pages, and then seriously. It didn't, I don't know what I would do. I might leave a 1-star review on Amazon. I'm not sure.
Wow. That's like the ultimate diss too, because if I don't like something, I'm not saying anything about it on any review. If I'm giving 1 star, it's like, I really want you to know. Yeah, exactly.
This was fucking bullshit. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And here's why. And it's not going to be one of those bullshit 1-star reviews where people are like, the hero said fuck too many times for a historical.
There was sex in here.
Yeah, come exactly. Those are the 1-star reviews I look for. If somebody's like, it was too raunchy, I'm like, oh, perfect. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna love this.
On my to-read list is this book currently.
Yeah, exactly. I think that I finally found a way to track my reading that I'm happy with because somebody posted the Smart Bitches Trashy Books spreadsheet that already had like established like data sets and stuff. And so I think I'm going to use that because I like to see beautiful data laid out.
Oh, like it had the formulas all in
there? But I'm not that good at Excel.
So how did you find Heaving Bosoms?
Through Brie, mostly. Mm-hmm. I mean, entirely. I really don't know how I would have found it otherwise because it never even occurred to me that people would be talking about romance novels on a podcast.
Yeah, and I think it kind of had this weird renaissance. You know what I mean? Like now there's quite a few. You know what I'm saying? Like I was looking, I think it was on Instagram, and I was like, there are more of these books? How are they, podcasts? How are they different? Like what else are we doing? You know what I mean? I mean, I
think that's the beauty of Melody and Aaron though, is that they have such like specific voices that there can be 15 different things almost exactly like it, and I would still want to listen to them talk about it over anyone else.
And I know that other people feel that way about other podcasts. You know what I mean?
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like I know that.
Yeah.
Heaving Bosoms is obviously superior, but whatever.
Yeah, we're on their feed, so we get to say that unabashedly.
Exactly. That's the real reason this podcast
yeah, just for people to fangirl. It's happening.
Yeah, it's too late. Everybody, but like obviously your family and everybody like knows that you read romance and like everyone is like, it's not a big
no. It's like, I guess it actually is helpful even because I get to talk about how like everyone's rant about why romance is valuable is something that I get to have with people a lot because I don't really hide anything from like even my extended family. Yeah. Like they know that I read tarot. They know about the tarot podcast. They know I read romance. Like I was at a family wedding in July and they were like, oh, Holly, how many books have you read so far this year? Because I read a lot. Yeah. And when I told them, one of my aunts was like, oh, yeah, but you're reading mostly romance. And I was like, there's still 350 to 450 page books.
That's like still words I have to put into my brain.
Yeah, like what makes you feel like that doesn't count as real reading? And she's like, well, that's not what I meant. And I'm like, okay, well, I think you should think about why you feel like it isn't real meant, reading.
Though.
Yeah, exactly. It's what you said in a room full of people. So I'm pretty sure that's what you meant.
You felt confident when it came out of your mouth.
Yeah, exactly. And then one of my cousins was like, do you have any recommendations for me? And because I love romance, I'm like, yes, I will give you a list. What do you want? Do you want historical? Do you want queer? Like, what can I give to you that will make you the happiest? I can find something for you.
Yeah. What's your favorite preferred genre? Is it
For sure historical.
Yeah.
I just love it. I love historical so much. But I really specifically love historicals that have what some 1-star reviewers on Amazon would say anachronistic heroines. I want a heroine who's has a job or is a suffragette or is kicking ass or is trying to manage her father's estate. I'm not that interested in simpering virgin heroines.
Yeah.
I want 25-year-olds who people are disregarding and who are total badasses.
Yeah.
Which is why I love Sarah McLean so much.
I'm reading A Week to Be Wicked right now.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And she, which led to my conversation that I had yesterday about whether spectacles back in Regency times could be sexy.
Could be sexy. The answer, I think that Clippy got to us to know, right?
Yeah, I think we said could be charming. Yeah. But we were firmly in the non-sexy category. Which
and the Nez Pierces or whatever are just they're too small. There's just no way for that to be sexy.
I mean,
a monocle.
I could maybe see maybe, but that also seems the least sorry, for the listener out there. I was pretending to hold a monocle up to my eye.
Yes, but with a stick.
And maybe a askance glance. Because I was being sexy with my monocle.
Sexy monocles. Maybe that should be the next thing that we market.
It's my new Twitter avatar or Twitter, whatever it is called.
Purveyor of sexy monocles is your new Twitter bio.
I'm gonna run at KissCon. I'm gonna run a DIY sexy monocle craft.
You're first, take your glasses that you spend hundreds of dollars and break them in half. Yeah. We need those lenses, baby. Yeah.
Everything else is pipe cleaners.
Yeah, exactly. People are wow, I thought I was going to have more fun at KissCon, but I ended up breaking almost my most prized possession.
My most necessary possession, actually.
Yeah, it was almost impossible to get home, but it was fun.
We had a great time while it lasted.
Exactly. I ate a lot of high chews and had a lot of laughs, but I have to get new glasses now.
Oh man. Hey, we aren't talking about you at all. I just realized.
I'm making you talk about you. I was just going to make you unveil how you stored books, but then I remembered that you didn't store books. You'd always take them back.
I don't buy paper goods as much anymore. I firmly am in the digital category.
Yeah.
Specifically because I have a hard time with clutter, as in I have so much of it.
Yeah. And you don't have space for more clutter.
And my body says yes, but my brain says no. Or my heart says yes, I guess is what I should say, because my heart is the one who loves a tchotchke.
And I love a tchotchke.
A well-made paperback or hardcover, which I'm going to go grab it right now to show you the hardcover that Joe got for Christmas. I'll be right back.
Oh, fun. That was fast.
It was just right here. I could see it. Are you ready for it? I'm going to slowly unveil it into the screen.
What the hell is that?
Okay. Holly, if you were going to describe this picture.
Okay. It is a ventriloquist dummy with oh my God, is it a book of ventriloquist dummies? Who bought this for you?
It's Mr. T.
So historical ventriloquist dummies. Oh my God, that is the creepiest one I've ever seen. Wow. This puts almost any creepy thing you could ever show me to shame.
Joe's going to cut out. So Joe, my husband Joe, got a book of vintage ventriloquist dummies in a white elephant gift exchange. It came to us.
Oh my God, that is the creepiest little girl in the whole world.
Her name is Daddy Doo. They all have names too.
Oh no.
I haven't seen all of them, guys.
They're oh my God. Is that Michael Oh my God, what is with the teeth?
Guys, this one has 2 teeth. Oh, it's a fold out. It's a pinup.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Are you going to put that in a child's bedroom? Please frame it and put it everywhere.
Joe is going to cut out the individual pictures and we're going to make little arrangements of the pictures together and we're going to frame them.
Like flat Stanley style. Oh yeah, framed on a wall. You'll do a whole gallery wall of the creepiest gallery wall of all time. I love it.
Yes. But I want to talk about your podcast because you guys are kind of in a unique situation, you and Esther, right? Because well, I mean, you're kind of in an Aaron and Mel situation, but the time difference is like extremely dramatic.
Our time difference is right now 17 hours.
Girl.
It's pretty bananas. So Esther lives in Korea and I'm obviously in California. So Esther is almost a full day ahead. So usually, not really, that's an exaggeration, but 17 hours, right? 17 hours, 16 or 17 hours. It means that we usually record on Wednesday mornings, my time, and it is 5 a.m. my time and 10 p.m. her time on Wednesday.
So she's living in the future.
She's living in the future. And I often ask her, because then like when I get home from work, she's waking up for the next day and I'll be like, hey, how's Thursday going? Please tell me it's better than today was.
Does that joke get old?
No, not to me. And she hasn't complained yet. So Esther, now's your chance. If you hate it, let me know.
Send an email to askabadasspod.
Yeah, exactly. The only way I'll accept that criticism, Esther, is via emailing Natalie about it or commenting on the open thread about this episode.
Please, let's just air some shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's time for airing of grievances. Do you hate that joke? But yeah, it's funny and strange because it does mean that we're only awake together for like 6 hours a day and we functionally run a business together.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of us just really having to trust each other. And then like before we make any decisions, we have to really consider how anyone could have any objections to it because we're basically making the decision alone. So we have to know each other's thought processes better than I think other people would because if something's happening in the middle of the day for me, I know that she's not going to be up for several hours, but sometimes decisions have to be made.
Yeah. And you like have to send a text that's like, hey, so I did this thing.
Yeah. Or even something as simple as like Patreon's being super weird for this one Patreon supporter. So I, did X, Y, and Z to resolve it. When you wake up, know that X, Y, and Z has been done and we're just waiting to hear back from Patreon or whatever. So it's interesting to have this kind of long distance friendship and partnership because it's exercising some communication muscles that I haven't had to exercise really ever. Because when else would you?
Well, and you're doing a lot of those background things, some of the really important things about a business, right? Over text, email, things like that, where you have to make sure that you're being clear, you know what I mean? And that's tricky because it's hard, or I shouldn't say it's hard to get your point across clearly.
In any text with anybody.
Yeah.
And we've only met in person once.
What?
I feel like I've known her forever,
friends?
but
you weren't friends for in real life.
No, we met via. This is to give any HBs who want to start a podcast with a fellow HB hope. We met through a podcast fan page on Facebook.
Huh.
And for a podcast called Wine and Crime, which is a true crime podcast. It's really funny. And we met through that. And she was not into tarot at all.
Whoa.
But she bought a tarot reading from me just as a random person that I'd interacted with only a couple times. I didn't know her. Yeah. She bought a reading from me. And then one thing led to another and we were talking all the time. And then when there was still the three of us, we just one day had this idea where somebody said something and I was like, what if we did a advice podcast, but we only answered people's questions via tarot? And then we started it because there wasn't really one that existed. And I think that that's kind of a key to podcasting is you really need to have an idea of who you want your audience to be.
Yeah.
Because there are so many podcasts. So if your idea, our idea was we want people who don't take tarot that seriously, who are willing to laugh about it, who are a little bit more lighthearted. And then since a huge component is advice giving, we wanted people who were sort of understanding that it's all sort of a learning process because Esther she's a phenomenal reader, but she's only been reading for less than 2 years.
Yeah.
And also everyone can constantly be learning. So there are certain moments where you'll be you'll pull a card and you'll be like, fuck, what is this? You just won't be able to recognize it right away, even as somebody who's been reading for years. So you want to make sure that you your audience sees you as like a learner and somebody who's like casual about it. Like we're not framing ourselves as experts because we're not.
Yeah.
And I think that makes it a lot easier, but that was all intentional from the very beginning. And I think that has allowed us to be able to like understand the decision-making process of each other a little bit easier because we kind of like have a very clear view of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Right. And I think when you present yourself as an expert in something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The only thing that can happen is that people will be like, you're not so smart and be total jerks about it.
But if you're like, hey, I really love this thing and I want to share my love for this thing with you guys. That I think is what comes through on Wildly Tarot for sure, at least for me.
Thank you.
And I think like that's what I think makes Erin and Mel great. And you know, like you're sharing your love of something with other people, and that exactly friendship.
And I really feel like that's the only way to do it because I think that people don't fully understand how much work all of the podcasting stuff is behind the scenes. Like it seems like, oh, you just record something and put it up. But there's so many hours that go into stuff and you have to really enjoy what you're doing or else it just is not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like we all have full-time jobs. We all have other stuff going on. So if it wasn't something that I wanted to be doing, then I would have stopped doing it a really long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And exactly. Is tarot your favorite witchy thing that you do, or is there other witchy stuff that you do that you like?
Tarot's the witchy thing that I do that has brought the most into my life.
Yeah.
So the whole kitchen witchery stuff is an area that I really love. So the thing that I probably like participate in the most is trying to bring a lot of like hominess into my household. And part of that is by feeding people and by doing things like, you know, you and I have in common our love of sourdough starters and like making bread and baking, and all of that is like witchy in some regard, especially if you're bringing with it the intention of like, I'm doing this to express love. I'm doing this to express community. I'm doing this to bring people together. Like all of that would, to me, be sort of like a witchy way to handle that.
Yeah.
But the tarot is something where like, because of tarot, I've started relationships with all of these really interesting people. And now I have this podcast and I have this Instagram, and like the tarot stuff has brought a lot into my life. Whereas the kitchen witchy stuff is stuff that my mom does. And it's just kind of like part of my family. So it doesn't feel quite as like I've made a decision to be witchy in this way because it's so intrinsic.
Yeah. You're inherently witchy in that way.
Yeah. And I think that there's sort of like there's a lot of, you know, I don't want to say scholarship because I think that a lot of it is just people's opinions, but there's a lot of like new age movement-y things about like how the idea that everyone has a witch inside of them and it's the part of them that like doesn't want to conform to structure and wants to live their own life and live on their own terms. And all of that is stuff that I really relate to and feel like that's the sort of like part of you that romance sometimes brings out too. Like feeling like a big fan of something that's a little bit subversive and women focused a lot of the times and looked down upon by the patriarchy is something that romance lovers and witches have in common.
More weight.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, like we were showing those shirts and those pins to each other the other night where it's like all the things that people said about the Salem witches. It's like stuff that people have just been saying about women who don't want to hear your shit for hundreds of years.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't agree with those points. You have to be hung. Thank you.
Exactly. There's no other option but throwing you into the ocean.
Yeah. Start her on fire.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how she really feels.
Yeah.
So I do feel like there's a lot of overlap. And also, like you've seen in the community, when Jenny put out her deck, there was a lot of interest. People have sort of like this internal witchiness that really seems to be well fostered in the romance community. And it's really cool to kind of see happen.
Do you want to do a lightning round?
Sure.
All right.
I already answered the carb thing.
All right. Carbs, bread, sourdough breads.
Sourdough breads.
Are you an Erin or a Melanie?
Can I use this astrological sign terms? I think that I am
I don't know.
I'm an Erin with Melody rising.
Okay. Great. Do you have a favorite author? I feel like we talked a lot about Regencies, but
I think Tessa Dare has to be my all-time favorite. I've read every single thing she's written. I suggest her constantly. I like her mix of humor and like seriousness. I just think she strikes that balance really well. So she's probably my absolute number one. If I ever met her, I'd cry. But I also love Sarah McLean so much.
Yeah.
I just started my mission for the year to finish all of Courtney Milan's books because I've read a lot of her stuff, but I want to like support her. So I went to make sure I had her whole entire back catalog. And so I've been reading a lot of her lately, and she's equally as good at mixing the comedy elements. So those are probably my top three.
Yes. All three of those human beings too.
Yeah, are great human beings.
Yeah. They're it's amazing. You know what I mean? Like all three of them are like role models in every aspect of the way, from their careers to what they do with their platforms to
how they interact with people. Yeah. It's just really awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
They nail it.
Yes. If only I could be that kind of person where they're like, you know what? I follow Natalie on Twitter and she is just getting it.
You can do that. I believe in you.
I'm never going to have my shit together, Holly.
Maybe not on Twitter. We'll find a different platform for you.
Still life pictures, maybe. Yeah, that's going to be the one. Instagram. That's Instagram. If you were going to bing boom bong something, what would it be?
I mean, gotta be tarot, right?
Sure.
Probably tarot or houseplants. If somebody even brings up houseplants in my presence, I'm like, all right, you got to get a ZZ plant. You got to get a mother-in-law's tongue. You got to get a pothos. That's where you start. Then it's like, I will just go on and on about houseplants.
My husband is a plant daddy. And
oh, really?
He like rescues plants at like Aldi's or like the plants like at the Home Depot that are like
just abandoned.
Yeah, exactly.
Or when someone like leaves a job and just throws their plant in the garbage and you're like, that's mine now.
Literally, my sister took a ponytail palm on a train because she was like, or no, maybe I brought it home because she was like, it's gonna die.
You're like, no, it isn't.
Yeah.
So maybe the short version of the Bing Boom Bong, because it's supposed to be something concise, right? My Bing Boom Bong would be anybody can keep plants alive.
Yeah, with Holly. Yeah, absolutely.
With Holly or Joe.
Can you quickly tell me what your favorite houseplant is?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Okay, if you were going to recommend a houseplant to somebody.
Oh, if I were going to recommend a houseplant to somebody, I would definitely recommend a really big snake plant because they are striking. Mm-hmm. You can get them for fairly affordable prices in like big sizes. They're super easy to keep alive. They're fine in low light. They're fine in sun. They're basically unkillable as long as you don't water them too much.
And I don't think your cats can eat them, which is a problem that I have with houseplants.
That's a good point. I don't have cats, so I don't even know. Yeah. But it's just a really solid one. And they also are visually stunning because you can get them in really big sizes. Yeah. And they grow surprisingly fast for something that is like doesn't have a lot of needs.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Yeah, that's probably the best one to start with.
Great. What is your favorite trope?
There's only one bed.
Oh, You're the first person, I think. Nope, second person that has not said enemies to lovers.
I don't really like enemies to lovers that much.
Oh, that's a controversial opinion.
I know, but I think that, so I'm realizing as I've been like hitting these incredibly high book count numbers every year, I've realized that the only thing, like what I want in a romance is like Rebecca Witherspoon does this really, really well. If we want to bring a non-historical in, her characters are always telling each other how they feel. And the conflict is external to the couple. Yeah. And I think that that's what I really appreciate in a romance novel. I don't want to see people like just refusing to tell each other how they feel for 400 pages. Yeah. And I feel like enemies to lovers tends to start that way. I want people to be like perfect strangers or friends to lovers even, but I love There's Only One Bed. It's the best.
Yes, absolutely. I do love that. That might be up there in my favorite tropes too, I think. Okay, Holly. If you were going to dispense one condiment from your belly button, what would it be?
This question makes me laugh so hard because I feel like people are split between what would be the most useful or what they'd like the most. So the most useful would be like pure white vinegar, duh, because you can use that to clean. You can use it on salads.
Yeah. But I think you could pickle literally anything.
Yeah, you could pickle anything. So that's the most useful. But I still think that I'd choose like really, really spicy English mustard because that's what I would like to have on me at all times the most.
And that's a thing that you can't find everywhere.
Exactly.
You know
it'd be so helpful.
If you're at an airport, there's no guarantee that there's
spicy English mustard. But if it's dispensed out of my belly button, I'm safe.
Yeah.
The people around me aren't because they'd be horrified, but I feel safe.
It's a war crime.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, ma'am, do you have a weapon on you? And I'm like, what? Are you talking about my spicy mustard dispensing belly button?
We were just watching a nature show, as my kids call them. I don't remember which one. It had David Attenborough as the narrator.
Love him.
So it could have been anything. But there was some sort of caterpillar or centipede of some kind that was very slow. And so, but it was a carnivore. And it was like, and the part was, how can it ever catch anything? Because it's so slow.
Yeah.
But don't worry, it shoots venom. Sometimes up to 12 feet.
Oh my God. Okay. So yeah, high velocity, spicy English mustard.
There you go.
It's perfect.
Immobilizing. It's immobilizing. You will never get mugged.
Yeah, exactly. The safest I've ever been.
Oh boy. Well, that's all my questions.
Is that it? We did it. Yay.
We did it. So Holly, thank you for doing this with me.
Thank you for having me.
And keep being a badass. And love yourself as much as you love heaving bosoms.
Yeah.
Yay.
We can do that. Woohoo.
Hey, you. Yes, listener, you. Are you loving the show? If so, please leave a rating and review in your podcast app. The 90 seconds you take to say something nice not only helps new people find the show, but it makes me super smile over at HBHQ. Also, I've had a few people ask, and the answer is yes. We are still doing the 5-star bribe. If you leave us a review with 5 stars, then we'll do whatever book you want. We're real deep into the list though, so it might be a while. Lilas! Okay, back to the show.